All right, y'all, welcome to the 10 at 10 for Thursday, April 18th of 2024, and a special shout out to everybody in Texas. We're glad to be back in North Carolina. Thanks for making us really feel welcome. We had an awesome trip.
Man, I feel like we just ate way too much brisket on that trip. Can there be too much brisket? I don't really know.
The answer is yes. I can answer it, and we attempted it. We went for a full breakfast brisket, lunch brisket, dinner brisket day.
We had dinner for brisket the day before that too.
We went all brisket once we got into Texas. Guys, I had so much fun meeting so many of you in person, putting a face with a name, and just really appreciate everybody welcoming us. There'll be a video coming from Cindy Bowles' place on tips featuring a lot of people from that trip. So stay tuned for a ton of Texas and Alabama content headed your way. Let's get into this 10 at 10, Tim.
Y'all, starting off today, we've got Acer Pomadamhus Dwarf. This is a selection that was found by Mrs. Hupp of Hupp's Tree Farm, and it's just like a little Shishigashira selection. She introduced it into the nursery trade through J.D. Vertrees.
See, I would argue this one reminds me more of Makawa, but if you put this one on Makawa or Shishigashira, it is still an amazing selection. Mrs. Hupp found this one, Barbara, and it's such a cool plant. Sometimes she posts in our group too, which is pretty fun. This is an absolutely outstanding plant. Now, I do recommend a little late day shade on Hupp's Dwarf. We find that it performs better in late day shade. Absolutely outstanding. It's like a more elongated leaf Makawa form, and you get this real dense, nice habit to it. I also think this would be excellent for bonsai.
Yeah, it does give a unique texture. For me, it's one of the types in that Makawa type family, Shishigashira family, that is different. I mean, it really is different from everything else. It provides a unique texture. It's got a coral pink new growth to it. And it's just a fun tree to have out in the garden that just has that tightly layering shingling habit.
It's got more serration to it and more elongated lobes. Really gives it something extra. I think this is a great one for a container as well. All right, guys, next up, we got the blues. That's what you get when you eat too much brisket.
I think I gained like 10 pounds on that trip.
pretty much did. Pia pungens, the blues, guys. I love this plant. I love the blues too, but I absolutely love this plant. The blues is one of the best blue spring colors. You get blue throughout the season, but that spring, especially when it starts pushing growth, is outstanding.
Take this tree, put it out in the landscape, pair it with something like a summer gold and a tamukiyama, and you've just made a colorful presentation really easily with winter interest and color flash. The blues is an amazing conifer with amazing Colorado blue spruce color, but with that weeping graceful habit. It gives a good form out there, but that blue color doesn't come in many plants, and it comes in the blues. This is an awesome tree to put in the garden.
Excellent size, 2 gallons today. These are very nice looking plants. I recently planted one of these, me and Corbin. Corbin actually planted it, but we picked out a place next to a gold drift, and I thought that was a really nice pairing. The blues is a little smaller, so it's nice to have it kind of in front of a gold drift. You can have that big yellow conifer, the blues showing out right in front of that. Now this one I do recommend staking it up a little bit for a central leader. You can actually manipulate the shape of this one a good bit. Absolutely exquisite Pia pungens.
Speaking of yellow, guys, next up we've got Acer Solum RM in 1 gallons.
RM's a classic. You've heard us talk about this one for a pot. You can move it around, put it wherever you want. These are going to work zones 5 through 9. I definitely recommend some shade in the hotter zones there. So give it some late day shade anywhere it's going to be having, picked up elevated heat for sure. It's exquisite though. I have this placed similarly to my Ukagumo in some early morning sun, late day shade, and a high oak canopy, and I get exquisite colors on this one in the spring.
I mean, this is the original Acer Solum that became really popular in the nursery trade, the golden full moon. And it just has that perfectly rounded habit. It actually, I believe, was the logo for Dick Vandermatt Nursery. Dick recently passed away, but this is an amazing, amazing tree. Give it some protection from that hot afternoon sun, and this tree will lighten up the garden. I mean, it is that small to mid-sized yellow tree with that perfectly rounded leaf that just gives it a lively feel in the garden.
All right, guys, back on the table, we've got some baby ghost. This is a rare Talon Buchholz Ghost Series plant. I love this one for its smaller stature, typically around that 6-foot range. Also, it's picked up bright red color you get on a Ghost Series type.
Yeah, and you definitely see some reticulation in these right now. They're just leafing out. This is one of the smallest of all the reticulated types. I mean, I think Shiki no Hoshi and Baby Ghost are the smallest in Amaga Shiguri. I mean, those are some of the smallest of that reticulated style. Definitely the smallest of the Ghost series for sure. One of the more rare forms of the Ghost series. I mean, Talon Buchholz, he's introduced 9 different members of the Ghost series so far, and 1 honorary member from someone else that he says honorarily there. This one, probably second or third hardest one to get in the Go series.
Really cool one. Great for a container. Pairs well with Sukino Shimo because Tim mentioned that. So you get that light green color with this kind of picked up pinkish red. I love the red this one gets. Now, the original one is actually at Pudo Gardens there in the landscape. So you can go see a massive one if you're visiting Pudo Gardens. Shout out to Lee Todd. He was posting some amazing spring pictures at Pudo recently. Love that garden. And if you haven't already, go back and watch our Don Brooks podcast we did during the Maple Society, all about Pudo Gardens. But the original one of these resides there in that garden now. All right, guys, next up on the table, we've got Acer Pseudosubaldianum subspecies Taka semense. Say that 3 times fast. You can also call it the Oolong-Do Island maple.
It's from Oolong-Do Island, from the spot between North Korea and Japan. There's a little island that gets the Siberian wind and frost. It hits it pretty hard. This tree is really cold tolerant, down to zone 4, all the way to zone 9.
Be awkward if you called it that and it wasn't from that island. Excellent plant, guys. A lot of people list this as a columnar tree, and they should. The species itself grows very narrow. I have a huge one of these in my yard. There's some amazing specimens of this, the Arnold Arboretum. They tend to grow very naturally, tall and narrow. So a great plant for intense, insane fall color in a small spot. One of my favorite fall color trees of them all is Acer Pseudosubaldianum subspecies Taka semense. That fall color, it can get metallic-y oranges, it can get metallic-y reds, it can be red, orange, yellow all at the same time. It puts on probably my favorite fall display of anything. Absolutely outstanding plant to be growing. And that narrower habit is nice. I have one up next to a patio, and we recently just decided to screen in the whole porch. So last year we decided to screen in, and we have room because it's not growing into the house. Now, it's probably a 15-foot tall tree. If I had a tree that was going to be shaped more like Emperor 1 there was no way we could have closed in the porch. But that narrower habit's nice and compact.
Now this tree has a leaf very similar to the Acer Solum. It's got that very round, almost Acer japonicum leaf, and it is really unique in that respect too. So it gives you some nice green foliage. It is later to leaf, which helps in those cold zones. That helps avoid those later threats of frost.
Yeah, heat tolerant and cold tolerant. Grab you a Taka semense today. You'll love it. All right, guys, this is one of my favorite azaleas. Another mouthful too. Sukino Shimo.
We're just trying to
it's like
give some tongue twisters.
It's the tongue twister 10 at 10.
Well, guys, Sukino Shimo, the leaves actually twist and curl upward, almost like a Shishigashira, but in as an azalea. This is an Asatsuki azalea, so it blooms in those summer months, and it's got those big pink blossoms.
This one's exquisite. I've seen some really fun bonsai done of this. I say exquisite a lot today. That's the word of the day, is exquisite. Really fun one for bonsai. I've seen some really dope bonsais of it. I like how the foliage gives you something extra. And then those blooms, they're outstanding. Really a good performer for us too. It's been a great plant overall. I like when azaleas have a little something extra texturally. So this one brings a different texture to the garden. You know, if you're an azalea collector, sometimes it can get a bit redundant with all the foliages. This one really breaks things up, gives you some different textures going on in the garden. It'll stand out against all your other plants. And I love what this one does. I think it kind of creates a natural habitat that looks really interesting.
And being a Satsuki azalea, it's dense, compact, easy to bonsai, real popular for that. And it's got those salmon pink blooms that was really the showcase of why people love azaleas in the first place.
I was saying habit, but I said habitat. Habitat.
Hey, it's Tongue Twister Tuesday.
Tongue Twister Tuesday. This is easy to say. Go ahead.
Guys, next up we got Pia Gla Daisy White.
This is a beautiful plant. I love what this one can do in the landscape. This is a small, compact tree, perfect for the fairy garden, and really incredible shades.
This has a small pyramidal form, and the new growth on this is a bright white when you give it sunlight. It is one of the most exquisitely white conifers in the garden.
Some might say this tree is exquisite. I love this one. Great for the container garden, guys. Great for a small, compact place as well. So put this one out in a place where you can get some filtered light. I do recommend some late day shade on it. The early morning sun will pick up the whites. The late day shade can kind of protect that white color further into the season. These are about to start throwing on even more. They've been in some heavy shade, but that growth is really popping, and a really fun, you know, kind of a micro conifer. So it looks great in a trough, looks great in a big patio planter, looks great in the railroad garden, the fairy garden, anywhere you want a small compact setting for some really impactful white conifers. Think of a Daisy White. Coming back, we got Tattoo. Now, we used to see a tree mixed up in the trade all the time, and it was not Tattoo, and we just called that one Bad Tattoo. So we'd be like, bro, you got a bad tattoo. This is the good Tattoo. Tattoo is an exceptional tree. Introduction from Red Maple Nurseries. You hear us talk about Billy Schwartz all the time and give him a lot of credit for all kinds of great things. Well, Tattoo is one that they helped kind of popularize. This one is a dwarf compact form of Macawa. Now, I was walking around open house the other day and I heard somebody go, "How is Tattoo different than Macawa?" Someone was yelling it out. You just walk into Mr. Maple, you just yell out Maple questions and you'll get answers. That's how it works. So I heard someone yell out, "What's the difference?" And I answered them. I was like, so it's going to be a more ruffled leaf and much smaller. And they were like, "Thanks, voice of the void out there answering Maple questions." But that's how we do it here.
Now, Tattoo is named after a smaller guy who was on a famous TV show called Survivor. And just tight little, dense little habit.
Bro. Don't do it.
It's about this little island, and they'd see planes come in, and the guy would go up to plane to plane.
Whoever survives the island,
Yep.
it's like a wish or something. I think.
Yeah, it's something like that.
I don't know how it works, but I think it was a James Bond. Anyway, Tattoo, excellent plant for the container garden. This one is just as heat tolerant as Macawa, giving it a high level of durability. I love how ruffled this one looks. Now, when I put this one in shorts, YouTube thinks I'm posting marijuana because this one, every time it gets flagged as something else, the ruffled leaf to it, for some reason, it just cannot get by the YouTube censors. So definitely share our video today to help us get by the YouTube censors. All right, y'all, these are just starting to re-leaf. They're evergreen in some areas. They're late to re-leaf here when we make them deciduous. They do just as well in both settings, as closely related to a Japanese maple, to palmatum that you think of, as some of the Japonicums and Shirosatums. We've got Acer Laevigatum Hong Long.
Now, these are actually grafted onto Acer Pomatum just to show you how closely related they are. Still got that non-invasive root system, but this is a selection that was found in the wild by Mark Wethington of the J.C. Ralston Arboretum. It was wild collected, and then they realized it had some dope traits. I mean, it just has this purple bark to it and purple leaves.
Bring back the dope plant. All right, guys, this one, we kind of forced Mark's hand. Like, we grafted this one. It was in the Lath house there at the J.C. Ralston, and Mark said, "Hey, help yourself to some soundwood on this one. It's really cool. Check out how purple the bark is. Check out how purple it is in the spring." And then we're like, "Mark, we have to name this. Like, this has to be a cultivar." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. It was wild collected." And I was like, "If you can't name this, we're going to graft it and call it Mark Wethington." So, like, we forced his hand. They put the name Hong Long on it, which actually refers to Red Dragon. This one is exquisite, not only for the foliage, y'all, but for the bark. You can get some incredible purple lavender bark going on this one. I actually like when they go deciduous because they re-leaf and they re-emerge with a very weird purple color that can quickly fade to almost like pewter, like a blue-green kind of color. Absolutely outstanding shades. Now, one thing we have found, Laevigatum is exceptionally heat tolerant. It's going to work zones 5 through 9. It'll soak up the heat, but you do want to give this one some late day shade. You want to give it a little protection in those hotter zones from full sun. Even in Raleigh, this one tends to prefer a little more late day shade.
Now, Acer Laevigatum came to us and we started realizing how amazing this tree was because Acer Laevigatum grew at such high altitudes in China and Taiwan and these different areas, meaning they could possibly be more cold tolerant than many of your other evergreen species. This means you might be able to get a tree that's beautiful, easy to grow, and it's got that unique purple bark and the purple leaf color.
We've had no problem growing this here in zone 6B in western North Carolina. We have found it to be completely deciduous. We also grow them like our Japanese maples. Now in your hotter zones, this one might be semi-evergreen, holding on to foliage later into the season and also leafing out a little bit earlier. Very, very cool plant to be growing though. And if you're a maple collector, you gotta get some of these weird species. They're in section palmata. They fit so well with our Japanese maples and they bring a lot to what we can do in the garden. All right, we saved maybe the best for last because this is one of my all-time favorites.
Guys, next up, we've got Acer Pomatum Mila. This tree brings the color like no other.
Dare I say it, it's exquisite.
I would call it very exquisite. Extremely exquisite.
You got away with words, man.
Mila just keeps putting on this reddish color, and it's some form of red-orange with lime green veins. It is so attractive. It keeps attracting you to come to it and say, "Man, I love this tree." I mean, we did a whole spotlight on this on the Mr. Maple show. Go check out that video of the Mila in our parents' garden at Maplewood Gardens. This tree just continues to bring it spring and then the summer and the fall.
Really cool. It tends to be a little bit more narrow in its habit. Again, by our friend, the late Dick Vandermatt. My favorite introduction by Dick Vandermatt. I think it just looks good in every season. That's like what Tim was saying. Every single time I look at it, I continue to I'm like, we need to be doing more of this one. We kind of helped popularize it. We were the first ones in the U.S. growing this plant. and we've kind of helped push it out there in the US markets, and I'm glad that it's getting to be such a cool plant that everybody's kind of taking hold of. I love that nurserymen's legacies sometimes live on with their great plants. This one, I'd be hard pressed if I like put down a top 5. Now everybody says Matt's favorite changes every single video. I'd be hard pressed for this not to be in my top 5 overall maples. I absolutely love it. I love how simple it is, but I also love how, you know, intricate it is. It changes continuously. Absolutely beautiful plant. Good fast grower too. Typically at over a foot of growth a year. This one's going to work zones 5 through 9. Grab you a Mila today. They will sell out quickly. It's been a minute since we've had this one back, so they do tend to take off pretty quickly on our 10-10s.
For people who know Orangeola, many people, that's their entryway into Japanese maples. This is kind of the Orangeola of red uprights. And that's simplifying a little bit because Orangeola doesn't get the green veins that this tree does. But I mean, it just continues to put on a show all through the summer. The red flushes in the summer are outrageous, and the orange-red fall color, it's out of this world. Grab you a Mila today. They sell out fast. Check out quickly today because our website doesn't hold it for you to complete that checkout process.
All right, guys, we've got an upcoming open house. It's the big daddy of open houses. This is the end-all, be-all of open houses. Our biggest one of the year is normally Memorial Day. We've got Memorial Day Monday coming up. Stay tuned for updates on that one. We're going to have some big surprises. I think the game show was a hit, but had some requests for people to already be in the game show if we do it Memorial Day. Guys, it's going to be off the chain. We also are updating our website soon to reflect some of our B&B and 10-gallon pickups so that we won't be able to ship those, but you'll be able to see some of our larger content and our pickup only. So if you're coming through Hendersonville, we can hold those for you up until about Memorial Day as well. So if you're picking that up and coming through, it's a great way to grab some gigantic trees. We'll get your name on them and get them tagged. We'll have them here for you to pick up.
Y'all, they've got a cool 10 at 10. Make sure to check out quick. Many of these trees won't be around on Memorial Day, so don't wait until then. Thanks for watching. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.